following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back from the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Sports from the Zone. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Not only sports from the Zone, specifically New York City sports from the Zone. I've got Robert Cole with me, Marty Rose, and down the line we're going to have such panelists with this coming in and out as Robert Denninger and Jack DeGraw and Peter Trunk, all folks who are experts on New York City sports. Keep up a little on Hot Stove League baseball. Talk about what's going on in relationship to New York, hockey, basketball, a little football, whatever comes to mind, however the conversation takes us. This show we're going to start off because we're in the Mets slot, and naturally the three of us are big Mets fans, Robert Cole, Marty Rose, and myself. We do the Mets podcast during the season, and we just hired a manager. Start with you, Marty Rose. What you think? Good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, we'll find out pretty shortly. But you know, out of the candidates, I think they made a good choice. The main thing with Beltran is his clubhouse, how he'll stand in the clubhouse, and he'll get instant respect from the players, seeing as how he's a borderline Hall of Fame player. So everybody knows him. I think it was good on that part. Plus the fact that he had said the Mets job was the only job he wanted to interview for. And I did hear some of the press conference today, and apparently he really loves New York City. And
wow.
I could just tell, like, he didn't want to move his family. And so I think that's a big plus, right out of the box.
Absolutely. Robert Cole, your impressions.
Okay, well, first of all, we all dreamed of, Joe Girardi or Joe Madden. Realistically, we knew none of that was going to happen, even though we were dreaming. And the hire was the kind of a hire that's being made these days. Okay, he got a 3-year, $3 million contract, which is $1 million a year, the same thing that Boone got with the Yankees. And that's pretty much what guys are getting these days. I think Rocco Baldelli got that, and that's the going rate these days. He is a former Met. He brings instant, name recognition, and I think that was important. He's not one of the guys that just gets rehashed over and over and over again. Some people were looking towards Dusty Baker. I think that ship sailed. So I'm more than willing to give him a shot. I mean, he can't do any worse than just about any of the other candidates. And like I said, he's got instant name recognition and instant respect, as Marty said, in the clubhouse to start with.
Okay. Few notes of interest. He's being billed as the first Latin American to manage or be head coach of any team in New York City. And I wonder how Jerry Manuel feels about that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm seeing all these, like he's the Jackie Robinson of it all. Also interesting, I noted going over the roster in my head, can't think of but two position players Ramos and Nina, who are Latin American, in a baseball world that is predominantly, is being taken over. I mean, these guys have talent. I'm not taking anything away from them. They should get jobs. A lot of Latin American players starring in the big leagues. The Mets don't have but those two guys, and they hire Beltran, which is who's a good hire. If you could look past race, creed, and religion. But it's interesting to note that the Mets have, Lagares is gone. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
Rosario.
Yes, Rosario. Yes. And boy, I was also thinking what a nice infield they have. If Canu plays up to our expectations of being on the downhill side of it, but if he just hustles and he just shows some enthusiasm, and I think he will under Beltran. Marty, I think you were saying or Robert, on a personal message that we share, that those two were teammates down the line, somewhere down the line.
Yes.
Maybe with the...
yeah, they were, Cano and Beltran, I believe, were teammates with the Yankees.
Okay.
Right.
Now I'll ask you guys something, because Marty phrases it just beautifully. Borderline Hall of Famer, this, that, and the other thing. I think he's more than the borderline Hall of Famer. Given his postseason, his penchant for getting in the World Series, this, that, and the other thing, I think he's a Hall of Famer. What say you, Robert?
Borderline is a good term. Now, if he shows anything at all as a manager, then that becomes a sure thing. I have a very strict grading on Hall of Famers, and the old thing was you had to be a superstar, best of the best. I don't know that he was best of the best, but he was as good as many that played during his time. So, yeah, no. I would say maybe not, certainly not a first ballot, but probably a Hall of Famer.
I equate him then with what you said to Gil Hodges. In other words, his managing career could have a big influence on it. Of course, if Gil had, there's two schools of thought. Gil should be in it if he were never a manager. He should be in the Hall.
Yes.
And you believe that.
Yes.
I believe he's the same sort of borderline, and his 1969 managership takes him over the edge. He should be in, with those two. And you guys, Claire Hall, a whole bunch of folks on Tony D'Angelo, a whole bunch of folks on Facebook make a great case for him being in the Hall of Fame without the manager stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, you make a great case, and I'm not saying you convinced me to the point where, in my head, it's still nice that he has the 69 World Championship, and sad that he didn't have 4 or 5 more. Guy dies at 49. We live to be 73. Looking at it from that standpoint, whoa.
Yep.
Really.
Let's just say mortality sucks, and I think I have to be the first to identify it this evening. I've never held back. About that at any stage of life. I don't care if you're 93, you would have wanted 94 under the best circumstances, if you and more, So once again, rest in peace, Gil Hodges, manager of the Mets. That it's interesting. We'll see how Beltran stands up. I think it's a great choice. A proud man who apparently laid it on the line. He could have hedged his bets, so to speak, because there's a number of managerial spots. I think there are some that are still open, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I like a man who speaks has conviction and backs it up with actions as opposed to just words, which sometimes even the words are nice to hear. Humor me for a while. I don't give a damn. I'm 73. Make me feel good. But when you do back it.
Well, also, Ralph, we were talking about Latin players. You got to include the C word in there, okay? Latin player. You got to include Edwin Diaz in there. You got to include Yuris Familia in there. So there's actually, a number more.
Oh, yes. You're right.
Than we were originally saying. And then there's several good young Latin players in the minors that are going to be, the next round of superstars. So,
one of whom was the most valuable player in the very, very strong and competitive Arizona Fall League. And
yes, he was.
His name
Andres
skips my
Jimenez.
mind.
Yeah, Andres Jimenez.
All right. So take back everything I said.
Our next catcher was also down there, Ali Sanchez.
Yeah, Ali Sanchez.
Yeah, he did well.
And then one of the top-rated prospects in all of baseball was Ronnie Mauricio. I think he's 18 years old, and he's old.
Kid.
So this may have been actually a well thought out thing by Brody. Bringing in a Latin manager at this point, and then you have a lot of young guys that are going to be coming up.
Right.
Oh, you got a lot of kids who grew up watching Beltran, idolizing him.
Yep.
That's very good. So
Perfect
I went over
timing.
the top 20 free agent list today, and I don't think the Mets will be in on any of them, with the exception of Wheeler, who they did offer the qualifying offer to. Wheeler. So,
and Brody did say that they were going to, even if he doesn't accept it, they were going to make a run at him. So we'll see. They're still talking, so who knows?
Now, I read this week that Cespedes will not play.
There was something out there today says they're not sure. They're doubtful.
Brody said he was not sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you're doubtful at this point and you're 7 months away from spring training and he's already had a year to recuperate, I think what they're doing, they better make sure that he's going to contribute before taking him off the insurance.
Well, I was just going to say that could very well be a sticking point. The Wilpons may just as well want to keep him on insurance,
right?
Rather than let him play and then bid him a fond farewell and goodbye. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and theoretically, he's at the age where you're getting the downside of a player who's been signed in one of these crazy contracts that we all live through at this point. The only difference is the checks aren't made out to us, and they really should be, just for pain and suffering.
Yes, I agree. Cespedes is 34, at this point. So, it's a crapshoot.
It's only 4 months till February, Ralph.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. It's a much shorter season than it was. I remember Don Lawson's perfect game was October 6th. So,
no playoffs.
Yeah.
Just season end, World Series start.
Yep.
Right. And, this was a nice playoff year. Weather didn't play a negative part in it. I was really rooting for Washington, not so much the team, but the poor, long-suffering fans of Washington baseball have, on a number of different levels that would take up a whole podcast, the first team moving to Minnesota just as it was getting good, the second one to Texas, this, that, and the other thing.
What about the poor fans of Montreal, Ralph?
Well, yes, that's true. There's always fans left behind when teams move, which leads me to my bottom line in life when it comes to all of this is cities should have eminent domain on their sports franchises. That, in other words, you want to move? Well, we don't want you to move. You want to sell your franchise? We'll help broker it. We'll finance people. We'll do what it takes so 11-year-old kids don't have to go through what we went through. It was probably more traumatic for me than you guys. If I remember correctly, Mert, you got into following the Yankees much more so than I did. I only really started appreciating the Yankees from a fandom standpoint in 1969 when I was out in California and I called my grandfather, and he didn't have much to live for at his age and what have you. But Joe Pepitone hit a home run in each game of a doubleheader. This was a couple of days ago that back at that when that went down. I remember him saying, well, life's not all that bad. At least the Yankees won a doubleheader and Joe Pepitone, blah, blah, blah. I really got to thinking about just how great those guys were and how I worshiped them as players but hated the team that went through it.
Well,
and I really root for
years. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I really root for them now, not as much as the Mets, of course. But, boy, do I really liked what they gave us this year in terms of coming back to be great as they were, with all those injuries. I mean, it was like they had meditis.
Well, it's like they came up with guys out of the woodwork that nobody knew who they were, and all of a sudden they're stars. I mean,
right?
I never heard of some of these guys because I'm not a big Yankee follower like I am with the Mets, but I think a lot of people are in the same situation. Who are these guys? And they just kept producing. It was unbelievable, really.
And they kept replacing each other as more and more injuries came up. The replacement for the replacement was doing good.
Yep.
So they were fun to watch. They gave me a good year of listening. The Mets were not fun. They were interesting, but it was painful. The games were painful. I can't put my finger exactly on why. And yes, I can. It was that fucking bullpen. Whoa.
Yeah. And how many times did we say the season was over?
Oh, quite a few.
Right.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
And then again, late hope only to be squashed again. So.
Yep.
That's the way.
True, but they took us into late September or whatever it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Marty and I are ready to watch reruns of Rin Tin Tin at one point.
Oh man, I wonder if Rin Tin Tin and Lassie ever got together, they'd not only find the kid in the well, I mean, they give him the kid didn't make, in my mind, the kid probably didn't make it in the well, but Rinny would make sure he got a military funeral that, and I'm a little off, as Marty knows from all those years. First grade, Marty, did you have, I know we had the same second grade teacher. We had Miss Ross in the second grade.
Mrs. Larwood in the first grade.
Oh, no, we were in different classes in the first grade. I had one of the sisters. You know who I'm talking about?
Devlin? Devlin, was it?
Yeah. Yes, the Devlin sisters. I had the one that's still alive. She was 80 then, and she listens to our podcast. She's 160 now. And she sent me a note. You didn't have to say fuck. You could have spelled it out.
But you never could spell anyway.
No. Thank you for reminding everybody. I can't spell. I have great grammar and a fair grandpa. That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Okay. I am not a speller. And sometimes you have to spell check. They'll throw stuff in there that you didn't mean to write. You have to one has to be very careful with that. Can't even rely, when it comes to the point where I'm smarter than spell check, the world has problems, I'll tell you. Anything about the Mets? I want to ask about the Jets a little bit. But I want to wrap it up with the Mets. Anything? The Giants. The Mets did not pick up Panix.
No,
he's going to be a free agent.
No. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, I can understand that.
I can too. I'm sure that they think that Lowry is a good bet to be the kind of the Rizzo, if you will, of the Mets.
Well, even if he's not, they got some young guys that could possibly come up to be a utility infielder.
Yeah. I mean, Lowry's almost 36 now. I mean, he's approaching his 36th birthday.
I'm telling you, when he was healthy a year or 7 ago, he was a damn good ball player with the A's, the Red Sox.
He absolutely was.
Yeah,
but
it was one of the quickest fall-offs that I've ever seen, because when he was signed, presumably they had him checked out, or either that or they're really stupid.
Well, we're talking about the Mets doctors now too, so.
That's true, and this is the second set of Mets doctors in the past 5 years too. They changed their whole training staff X number of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Well, probably 3, and so I don't know if they're going on the cheap along those lines, because doctors who are really top-notch at what they do probably command more money to be on call 24 hours a day than your emergency room intern type thing. No disrespect for them. I'm a super senior from Newtown High School. The only time I thought of medical school was when they're going to put me in hospice. That's but by the same token,
one of their physicians, I think, is Hot Lips Houlihan.
Right.
So
she lasted 11 years on that show, and
she's still alive.
And that's not the surprise. The surprise is I'm still alive. So, and that was a great show. Incidentally, I catch a rerun of that every now and again, and have to say I really enjoy it. So
save those for the upcoming season in case we have to pull the plug on the Mets early.
Yes. We could put them in a MASH unit and see how they survive. So let's talk a little bit of Jets. Anything that comes to mind?
Okay, that was the quick.
Or is that was it? Huh?
Let's talk about the Knicks. Okay, let's move on to the Rangers.
Actually, I'm hearing good things. I'm reading good things. I don't get to watch them very much, but as far as the Rangers, they seem to be on an upswing. So if you know anything about it,
yes, they've changed things over quite a bit. They have a lot of younger players. They've won their last 2 games. They're playing much better the last couple of weeks. They're playing again tonight. I don't know what the score is tonight, but they're changing the so-called culture totally, and it's a fun team to watch. I've watched several of their games, and it's a much better team to watch.
Little entertainment in the winter. You know how I get my baseball Jones, guys? I don't know if I ever mentioned it to either of you. I have a computer sim league, baseball league, where I go back in time and I chose in my league the following teams. Only 6. The 54 Giants, the 55 Dodgers, the 53 Yankees, the 61 Yankees, the 62 Yankees, the 61 Yankees, the 62 Giants, they were in San Francisco by then, and the 63 Dodgers.
What, no 62 Mets?
No, this is just a league of no computer game has ever been able to simulate their ineptitude, and I mean that. There's nothing that you could build into a computer engine that could approach what we saw in '62. And I say that it was jokingly, and it was fun and all that. '63, it wasn't fun. Remember that?
Yes.
It was Timmy Hawkness and Larry Burright acquired for whom I consider to be one of the top pitchers on the team, and that was Bob Righty Miller, who went on to help a bunch of National League teams, including the Dodgers, for a long time. He was a damn good pitcher, and I was awfully disappointed in the results of that trade. I remember, like it was yesterday, how much those guys sucked. And you had, right? You think of it, we're expecting much more from those guys. We aspired to mediocrity in those days. Nothing more, but dollar for dollar, bang for your buck, whatever you want to call it. We got less than 63 than was expected, and it ceased to be fun on opening day. And I don't remember if Mert was with me. I think you might have been, Mert. The first pitch on opening day was hit a ground ball to Charlie Neal, playing third base. Bobbled it for an error, and that's how the I don't know if it was the first pitch, but first at bat. And I think Casey said something after that game. Well, was still cheating the fans. and they were.
Yeah.
So, but the memories were great. More so, the memories of how we were in those days. The memories of when something, for me, thinking about it right at the moment, for me, sitting in a sports event with tickets from your uncle, and something to, like any other game in any sport, you'll see something that'll amaze you. And when Mert and I would look at each other like, could you believe this? You remember those looks, Mert? We just look over at each other like, holy. It's like when the Knicks won that triple overtime.
I was just thinking about that.
Against Wilt.
Yep. Willie Knowles with the last rebound.
Absolutely. It was either Willie Knowles or Johnny Green. And but I don't. It was absolutely, and they won. It was Wilt's first year. He was tearing it up, and it was the old Warriors before they moved to San Francisco, naturally.
Right.
And wow, the way we were. Robert, when we go back in the time machine, you could join us for a game back then.
Sounds good. The Knicks were awful back then, but I still remember listening to them on the radio.
Right. Oh yeah. Charlie Tyree playing center.
Charlie Tyree, Ray Felix, Willie Knowles, Kenny Sears, Richie Guerin, Carl Braun. Oh yeah.
And those draft choices got to get Tom Stith. He's got tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is dead. There was another guy with a heart problem that they got. They drafted Paul Hogue.
Darrell Imhoff.
Darrell Imhoff, who was the center the night that Wilt scored 100 points.
Interesting.
Darrell Imhoff and Cleveland Buckner were in there.
Cleveland Buckner, yes.
There you go.
And that was Saturn's guy. He had a great name, and Saturn picked up on Cleveland Buckner. So if you're listening, Saturn, where the hell are you? It's been a long time, right?
He's in Florida somewhere if he's still alive. I don't know.
Okay. Braverman, too. Haven't heard from Braverman in a long time. He was in Saturn's building. We're only going back 55 years, Mert.
Yeah,
all right, folks. It's fun for us. If it's half as much fun for anybody out there as it is for the three of us doing this, then I'm glad we're doing it on your part. I'm glad we're doing it for our sakes, if for no other reason. Thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Marty Rose, Robert Cole. I'm Ralph Tycho, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm the weak link of it all. Over and out, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.